one of the biggest mistakes that people make is instead of asking themselves, how can I make the world a better place? They ask themselves, how can I make money with this?
Yes. Hey guys, welcome to another segment of Next Step. It's June, everybody's out looking for a job, and the reality is these employers are probably going to check you out on social media before they ever call you in for an interview. So today we have Rachel Mansfield here with us. Rachel is with Brocksville Design Company. She's going to talk to us about personal branding and your presence on social media. Now, Rachel has a partner at Brocksville Design Company, Tim Brock. Unfortunately, Tim couldn't be here today, but she is going to tell us a little bit about herself and what you guys do at Brocksville on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, so what we do is we specialize in branding design, graphic design, and web design. So what we like to say is we make people look good, especially on the internet. So our business is what's known as B2B, meaning we're business to business. So our customers are other businesses and organizations. So we're not providing a good or a service directly to a consumer, we're providing it to another business.
Gotcha.
So a lot of what we do is about understanding brands and understanding a culture of a business or organization, because our job is to create visuals that not only accurately represent that business or organization, but also appeals to their customer. Because if we're not helping this business get customers, then there's no point in what we're doing.
Right.
So
yeah.
that's pretty much the basis behind everything we do.
Awesome. Good. That's why we've got Rachel here today, because we want you guys to be more prepared in working your personal brand and how that looks online and how that comes across to somebody that might go and Google you to see who you are and check you out.
And just being I think consistent across board, what that needs to look like. You can't just be go to an interview, I'm all good, and then you go on your social media, you all wild and crazy. There's nothing that's consistent about. So which one's the lie? Which one are you showing me? Yeah. So that kind of go into this question, Rachel, why is it important for a person to be aware of their social media brand?
So if you're talking about a social media brand, it's important to first understand what a brand is. Okay. So a brand, whether you're talking about a business or a person, is who you are. Your brand is what people think of you when they hear your name. Yeah. So if we were to say Coca-Cola, immediately there's going to be some images that come to mind. So whatever it is that comes to your mind, that is their brand. So that's what a brand is. And if we're talking about a social media brand, that's who you are on social media. So that's how you're representing yourself online. It's really important to be aware of how you're presenting yourself online, because like you were saying, people are going to be looking you up. If in 2020, you don't think that people are looking at your social media to try to get a read on who you are as a person, you are just not paying attention. Right. Yeah. Because that is absolutely what people are doing. And not just employers, but kind of across the board. I know, for me personally at Brocksfield, if I'm contacted by anyone who wants to work with us or intern with us or anything like that, that's the first place I'm going is to their social media, just to try to get a feel for who they are as a person. And I even do that with potential clients. If someone's contacting us to want to work with us, I'm going to their social media too, because I want to know, is this someone that I want to work with?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
It's important that you're aware of what you're putting out, and not in a sense that I'm assessing to see if someone, acts crazy or is a good or bad person. That's not what I'm looking at. What I'm looking at is this an emotionally intelligent person?
Good point.
Is this someone who knows how to handle conflict? Is this someone who is posting about tons of drama or fighting with people online? Like, what type of culture is this person going to bring to an experience or an interaction that we may have? So that's something that's extremely important to be aware of, not just how you're presenting yourself visually, but how you're presenting your emotional intelligence as a person, because that's what I feel like people are trying to get a read on the most.
Yeah. That's a good point. And I don't think people even think of it that way. They're probably thinking, what pictures do I have? They're not even thinking that those are the things that you're actually looking for, and that you can see just by what they're posting and what they're saying. So I guess that kind of brings us to the next question is, what are some mistakes that maybe you've seen or you think that teens and young adults can make on their social media pages?
I think for anyone, one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of people make, it just goes back to what we were just talking about with awareness and not being aware of the reach of social media and how far it goes. What I like to say is posting something online is like taking that content and putting it in an envelope and mailing it to everyone. That's pretty much true. What you do when you post. Even if your social media channels are set to private or you delete posts, it's still out there. And, screenshots are forever. There's no way to bypass that. And you do, in America, we all have freedom of speech, and you really can post what you want. You're allowed to. But just because you have freedom of speech does not mean that you have freedom from consequence. Right? So you can post whatever you want, but if you're going to be posting things that could be interpreted as offensive or hurtful to anyone, it is your responsibility to be prepared for any consequences that may come up because of that.
That's such a good point. I think freedom of speech, but not freedom from consequence. That's huge. It really should make you pause and think twice before you hit that
button. I also love what you said before about culture. Like, do you fit into my culture? And like, as an employer, you're looking at that. If you're trying to create a certain leadership culture, a culture of your business, and someone is implying or trying to interview, and you look on their social media and you're like, this not going to fit into the culture we're trying to create. It's going to disrupt it. You automatically eliminate before I even meet you in person. So I love that, because I never thought about that before. Like, especially if you're a young adult, you're maybe graduating from college. It's a little different than a fast food job. You're talking about more organizations are becoming more culture oriented. We're living in an age where, like, our parents got jobs and they stayed in their job for 20 years. This generation get a job. And so you have Google and Amazon and all these, so trying to offer all these different benefits that go with that, because they're trying to create a culture there to attract the best, people to work at their job. So I love that you said that, because that was like, that was so good to me.
I value emotional intelligence and emotional maturity over most anything, because I can teach you a skill, but I can't teach you how to be emotionally mature. I can't teach you how to be a mature person. That's work you have to do on your own.
So what advice would you give to someone that wants a cohesive brand? Like, where do they need to start?
So if you're wanting, we call it brand consistency, or if you're wanting to establish a brand, the first thing you have to do is define the brand. You have to create the foundation for it, because you can't communicate a message that you don't know. So what I usually tell people to do is you need to start with a mission statement, a vision, and core values. Even if you're not planning to share that publicly, you don't have to, but it's to serve as a foundation. It's to serve as an anchor that kind of pulls you back to why you're doing what you're doing. Like, for instance, the mission of Broxfield Design Company is to elevate the visual identity of brands and organizations through quality design and effective communication. Our vision is to make our community a better place through art and design. And our core values are quality over quantity. Say what you mean what you say. Good enough isn't good enough, and good vibes only.
Those are our
values. And so your mission statement is about who you are and what you're doing. Your vision statement is about where you're headed,
right,
and what you want to accomplish, big picture. And then your core values are the principles that you're building your brand on. So it all kind of serves as that anchor. So before you do anything, you have to start inside first by defining what your brand is. You know, we use the term brand guidelines. You can't abide by guidelines that you don't know. So if you want things to be cohesive and you want to stay within guidelines, you first have to identify what those guidelines are.
Oh, I love that, because to me that's speak to identity, especially in this age, in this generation. So know who you are. So then that's where you can spread out to the world. I think so many people don't know who they are. So they're just putting out a lot of content that they don't know if it's even a fit for them. It's just, this is what's popular. So I'm going to do this, and this is popular. I'm going to do that. So it's really about sitting in yourself and saying, who am I? Who do I want to be? And working towards that every day. So it's not, to me, it speaks more to me more than just a brand of yourself. Is really like, who am I and who do I want to be, and how am I walking towards that?
First you have to define it, and then you have to stick to it. Which is a lot easier said than done in a lot of situations. But that's the reason why you have especially those core values, because you have to stick to them if you want to stay on brand, and you do want to have a cohesive message, like our first core value, quality over quantity. In our business, you know, we decided early on that it was much better to be really, really good at a couple of things than to be kind of good at a lot of things. And we wanted to be selective about the clients that we work with, which when you have a family to provide for can be hard sometimes, because you want to just work with every single person that calls you and everybody that comes through your door, but not everybody is a good fit for us. And we've learned through our experience over the years that a bad client relationship is worse than maybe not meeting numbers that you wanted to meet financially. No amount of money is worth the experience of a bad client relationship, because we work very closely with our clients just because of the nature of what we do. So we do have a little bit of a screening process when it comes to who we work with. Now, it's not all that selective, but we do have some standards. And it is difficult sometimes to stick to it, because sometimes you want to just get the easy money, you know, and you have to really have self-control and be like, and you have to have foresight. You have to be able to think of things in the long term and think like, okay, this seems like a really good decision right now, but in 6 months, what's this gonna look like? And is that worth me compromising my values? And like 9.9 times out of 10, the answer is no, it's not worth it.
I would agree with that.
I just hear that you've got these standards, and so you have something to kind of measure it against. And in a business that works absolutely, but it definitely works for these teenagers and young adults, because like you said, if you sit down and figure it out, like, what is it? Who am I? What is my mission, my vision? And then anything that comes across your plate, like if it doesn't measure up, then you don't need to put that out there. You don't need to share that. And you do have something to kind of come back to and go, does this fit? No. Yes or no.
I also think it speaks to the longevity. I think sometimes, like, a lot of young people, or maybe this my perception, is that get caught up in the short term. And so we need, you know, when you get older, my age, you think, oh my gosh, you start to think long term or further out. And so I just think that's the encouragement of this whole thing. Is like, what is your long term goal? And this is the thing about goals, they will change. What I want to be at 25 is not what I want to be now. That's okay. But at least start thinking about your foundation of who you want to be as a person. Because we see in the world that social media changes everything. If you make one wrong turn in this video, it will affect every aspect of your life. That's what we're seeing in our world now, where people are losing their jobs and families and all this stuff because of one wrong thing. Which
something they tweeted like in 2009. You know? Like,
comes back to haunt.
That's what we were talking about, like the reach of it. Like, this reach is far past this moment.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You have to be able to think big picture, like exactly like what you were saying, and thinking in the long term really is a skill. Like that's a skill that has to be developed because it's very natural for us to just want to grab what's right in front of us,
be in the moment,
and not think outside of that. And it's a skill that has to be developed. But once you do develop it, and once you do realize how beneficial it is to think long term, to have patience, to trust the process, and you start to reap the benefits. And like reaping, like when you get to that point where you can reap benefits of your hard work and the time that you invested into a process, into being patient, there's just nothing like that. And it's so motivating. And so I understand when younger people have a hard time seeing that because they're just not at that point yet. They're not at that point where they're able to reap benefits from years of hard work and education and whatever else. So it can be very natural to want everything to materialize like this and not want to be patient.
Well, and then we live in an age where everything is instant. So it makes sense. They have to teach themselves patience. When something in your page don't come up in 5 seconds, like, what's wrong with my phone? Like, what is happening? And it's like, where's the patience? Like, I mean, I grew up in an age, I didn't get a cell phone until I was 17. We had house phones, and it's all that stuff that now we realize we want it now. So now it's like, okay, let's go back. When you put a seed in the ground, you don't produce the harvest the next day. It takes a process, and now we have to reteach ourselves what that process is, because now we learn to be impatient. So
Well, Rachel, I wanted to ask one more question, and that is, what is some advice that you would give young adults, teenagers? I've had the pleasure of hearing you speak to some of my students in the classroom, and you've told your story, and I think it really I know it inspired a lot of our kids. And so I just wanted you to be able to kind of share some of that advice with our listeners today.
I think that the best career advice that I could give anyone boils down to asking yourself 3 questions. First is, what do I love to do more than anything? Second is, what can I be doing right now to get better at that thing? And third is, how can I use that to make the world a better place?
Oh, I love it.
If you can ask yourself those 3 questions and answer them honestly, that's what's going to serve you better than anything else. One of the biggest mistakes that people make is, instead of asking themselves, how can I make the world a better place, they ask themselves, how can I make money with this? And again, it goes back to what we were talking about before with not being able to see things in a larger scale, and focusing on what's right in front of us. Obviously we need money to live. We have to have money. But if it's your motivation, that's the path to unfulfillment. And if you spend your time trying to, look inward and get to know yourself and what you're naturally good at, what you naturally love, that you're naturally passionate about, spend your time and your focus and your energy on getting as good as you possibly can at that and using it to add value to the world around you. Jobs, money, financial stability, those will be the byproduct. And you'll have, what's better than being able to have a job that you love, doing something that you love, and making the world a better place. Like, there's literally nothing better than that. So the money, the financial gain, that's all the byproduct of using your skills, using what you love, to add value to the world. Because if you're moving toward making the world a better place, you will never be moving in the wrong direction.
So good.
That is so true. It's like leaving a legacy beyond yourself. And love that. So one, we want to thank Rachel for being with us.
Thank
love
you.
it. I can talk about this stuff all day.
I know, this could be a 1-hour video really quick.
So I want you guys to be on the lookout, because we have a contest that is coming up.
Yay! Exciting.
So we want to hear from you guys. Just check out our post after this if we get more direction. But the winner actually gets a one-on-one consultation with Tim and Rachel. I keep begging them to do a mastermind class, so maybe you guys can convince them as well, because I'm telling you, the value that you would get from 1 hour with them should cost it's probably worth hundreds of dollars. So we want to hear your entrepreneur ideas, creatively, what do you want to do? And really, I kind of want to like take what you took that last part is, how do you want to leave the world better? And start thinking about what you can give to leave, make even our community. Let's make it smaller. Like, what can you even give in our community? But we'll give more instructions around that. So be on the lookout for that. Thank you guys for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you guys again soon.